Silent admiration. The autumn rain tapped gently against the windows of Turning Pages, the small independent bookstore that Maya Chen had inherited from her grandmother 3 years ago. At 26, Maya found solace in the quiet company of books rather than people. Her delicate fingers traced the spines of newly arrived novels as she arranged them on the wooden shelves, each movement careful and precise. The bell above the door chimed, and Maya looked up to see a tall man shaking raindrops from his umbrella. His presence immediately filled the small space, not imposingly, but with a quiet confidence that made her breath catch slightly. "Welcome to Turning Pages," she said softly, tucking a strand of black hair behind her ear. "Can I help you find anything specific?" The man smiled, warming his thoughtful brown eyes. "Just a quiet place to escape, honestly. I'm Ethan Montgomery." Maya recognized the name immediately. Ethan Montgomery, the founder of Horizon Tech, known not just for his business acumen, but for his philanthropic initiatives. What was someone like him doing in her modest bookstore in this quiet part of the city? "I'm Maya," she responded, not mentioning that she knew who he was. "Feel free to browse. The reading nook by the window is particularly nice during rainfall." Ethan nodded appreciatively and wandered through the narrow aisles. Maya returned to her inventory but found herself stealing glances at him. Unlike the hurried customers who sometimes rushed in for bestsellers, he moved deliberately, pulling out books, reading back covers, and replacing them with care. An hour passed in comfortable silence, punctuated only by the rain and occasional turning of pages. Maya noticed Ethan had settled in the reading nook with a collection of poetry, something that surprised her given his public persona as a tech innovator. When he finally approached the counter, he carried 3 books: the poetry collection, a historical novel, and a book on sustainable business practices. "Eclectic choices," Maya commented as she rang up his purchases. "Like most people, I contain multitudes," Ethan replied with a gentle smile. "This bookstore is remarkable, a true haven." "How long have you owned it?" 3 years, but it's been in my family for decades." Maya wrapped his books in recycled brown paper. "My grandmother started it. I practically grew up between these shelves. That explains why it feels so loved," Ethan said, looking around appreciatively. "Many independent bookstores are struggling these days." Maya hesitated before admitting, "Including this one. But we manage." Something in Ethan's expression shifted. Not to pity, which Maya would have hated, but to thoughtful consideration. The world needs places like this where stories are treasured. Their fingers brushed as she handed him the wrapped package, and Maya felt an unfamiliar warmth spread through her. She had lived a sheltered life, raised by her grandmother after her parents died, focused on studies and then the bookstore. Romance had always been something she read about but never experienced herself. "Would you mind if I came back?" "This place has a certain peace to it," Ethan asked. "The bookstore welcomes all readers," Maya replied diplomatically, though her heart quickened at the prospect. As the weeks passed, Ethan became a regular visitor. Sometimes he would sit for hours with a book, occasionally making notes in a leather-bound journal. Other times, he would browse briefly and exchange a few words with Maya before departing. She found herself looking forward to the bell's chime, hoping it would be him. On a particularly quiet Thursday afternoon, Ethan arrived carrying a small paper bag. "I thought you might enjoy these," he said, placing the bag on the counter. Inside, Maya found freshly baked almond cookies from the patisserie down the street. "How did you know these are my favorite?" she asked, surprised. "You mentioned it once, when we were discussing that novel set in Paris," Ethan replied, seeming pleased that he had remembered correctly. Maya felt seen in a way she never had before, not just as the quiet bookstore owner, but as a person with preferences and thoughts worth remembering. As they shared cookies and conversation among the shelves of stories, Maya sensed that perhaps her own story was taking an unexpected turn. 1 page at a time, pages between us. 3 months after their first encounter, Maya's bookstore had become Ethan's sanctuary from the demands of his tech empire. Their tentative exchanges had evolved into comfortable conversations that often stretched into closing time. Maya found herself setting aside books she thought might interest him, creating a small collection behind the counter. I saved this for you, Maya said one evening, presenting Ethan with a worn first edition of a classic science fiction novel. It came in yesterday, and it reminded me of that discussion we had about technological ethics. Ethan accepted the book reverently, his fingers brushing against hers. You remembered. His voice held a note of pleasant surprise. Most people only talk to me about quarterly projections and market valuations. Well, I'm more interested in character development and narrative arcs, Maya replied with a small smile. As closing time approached, Ethan lingered by the register while Maya counted the day's meager earnings. Her shoulders slumped slightly as she recorded the figures in her ledger. Maya, Ethan began carefully, forgive me for being forward, but I've noticed the bookstore has been quieter lately. She sighed, setting down her pen. Online retailers and e-books have been tough competition. My grandmother never had to worry about websites offering next-day delivery. Ethan leaned against the counter, his expression thoughtful. What if we could combine the soul of Turning Pages with some modern innovations? Not to change what makes this place special, but to help more people discover it? We? Maya questioned, eyebrows raised. A partnership, Ethan clarified. I have resources and technical knowledge. You have literary expertise in this incredible space. Together, we could create something unique. A bookstore that bridges traditional and digital experiences. Maya's heart raced at the proposition. It wasn't just the potential to save her grandmother's legacy that excited her, but the prospect of working closely with Ethan. What exactly are you suggesting? Over the next few weeks, their partnership took shape. Ethan brought in a small team to develop a website and app for the store, featuring Maya's personalized book recommendations. They installed comfortable seating areas with subtle charging stations and created a small cafe corner offering artisanal teas and coffees. The most significant addition was the Literary Salon, a monthly event series where authors could give readings and readers could discuss books in an intimate setting. Maya had always dreamed of hosting such gatherings, but lacked the connections and resources to make them happen. As they worked side by side, Maya found herself drawn not just to Ethan's kindness, but to his passionate vision. When he spoke about making literature accessible or preserving independent businesses, his eyes lit up with the same intensity she felt when discussing her favorite novels. One evening, as they rearranged shelves to create space for the upcoming salon, Ethan paused, a stack of books in his arms. You know, I've never met anyone who listens quite like you do, Maya. Most people in my world are always waiting for their turn to speak. Maya felt her cheeks warm. My grandmother always said that books teach us to listen to stories different from our own. I suppose that habit extends to people, too. It's refreshing, Ethan admitted. Around you, I don't have to be Ethan Montgomery, CEO. I can just be Ethan, the guy who enjoys poetry and asks too many questions about fictional characters. Later that night, as they finished preparations for the store's grand reopening, they sat among the shelves, sharing a late dinner of takeout noodles. The bookstore was transformed, still intimate and warm, but now revitalized with subtle modern touches that complemented rather than overwhelmed its character. Tell me something you've never told anyone, Ethan said suddenly, setting down his chopsticks. Maya considered the question, then replied softly, I've never been in love. Not really. I've read about it in hundreds of books, but I've always been too shy, too busy, too afraid, maybe. Ethan's expression was gentle, not pitying. What are you afraid of? Disappointment, I suppose. In books, love is transformative, earth-shattering. What if real life doesn't measure up? She laughed self-consciously. That sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Not at all, Ethan said. Stories give us frameworks for understanding emotions, but they can also create expectations. Sometimes real love is quieter than fiction, but no less profound. As he walked her home that night, their hands occasionally brushing in the gentle spring air, Maya wondered if this gradual unfolding of feelings, this tender anticipation between them, might actually be more beautiful than any whirlwind romance she had ever read about. Midnight Confessions. The first literary salon exceeded all expectations. Turning Pages buzzed with energy as readers and writers mingled among the carefully curated shelves. Maya moved through the crowd, refilling wine glasses and facilitating introductions, occasionally catching Ethan's eye across the room. Each shared glance felt like a secret conversation. Near midnight, as the last guests departed, Maya collapsed onto one of the velvet reading chairs, exhilarated but exhausted. "I can't believe we pulled this off," she said, slipping off her heels and tucking her feet beneath her. Ethan locked the front door and returned with 2 cups of chamomile tea. "You were amazing tonight. The way you connected people, how you spoke about that new historical novel, everyone was captivated." "It was terrifying," Maya admitted, accepting the warm cup. "I've never been comfortable as the center of attention. Yet you shined." Ethan settled into the chair opposite hers, loosening his tie. The bookstore was illuminated only by scattered reading lamps and the glow of the city through the windows, creating intimate pools of light in the darkness. Maya sipped her tea, gathering courage. "Ethan, can I ask you something personal?" "Anything," he responded without hesitation. "Why me? Why this bookstore? You could partner with any business, support any cause. She gestured vaguely. "Ethan Montgomery. And I'm just—" "Don't say just, Maya," he interrupted gently. "There's no just about you." He set his cup down and moved to kneel beside her chair. "When I first walked in here, I was exhausted, not physically, but spiritually. I'd been making decisions that affected thousands of people, attending meetings where success was measured only in profit margins. Then I found this place." "Found you. You care so deeply about stories, about connecting people with the right book at the right moment. It reminded me why I started my company, to make meaningful connections." The silence between them hummed with unspoken feelings. Maya's heart pounded as Ethan's hand found hers. "There's something else I should tell you," she whispered, looking down at their intertwined fingers. That is, I haven't—" The words caught in her throat. "Never what?" Ethan asked softly. "Been kissed," Maya finally confessed, her voice barely audible. "I know it's strange at my age, but between caring for my grandmother, then the bookstore, and my own shyness, opportunities never arose. Or perhaps I never allowed them to." She expected surprise, perhaps even amusement, but Ethan's expression remained tender, unperturbed by her admission. "Maya," he said, reaching up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. "That's not strange. It's just part of your story." His hand lingered on her cheek, warm against her skin. "Would you like to change that chapter tonight?" Maya nodded almost imperceptibly, unable to speak past the emotion tightening her throat. Ethan moved slowly, giving her time to retreat if she wished. His lips brushed against hers with exquisite gentleness, a question more than a demand. When she responded, leaning into the kiss, he cradled her face in his hands as though she were precious. The kiss deepened, and Maya felt as though all the romantic scenes she had read throughout her life had been merely preparation for this moment. It was both exactly as books had described, dizzying, electric, and entirely different. More real, more human, with the taste of tea and the slight awkwardness of finding their rhythm together. When they finally parted, both breathless, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "Worth the wait?" he whispered. Maya smiled, her eyes still closed. Better than fiction. Later that night, as they walked hand in hand through the quiet streets toward Maya's apartment, the city seemed transformed, familiar yet new, like a beloved book reread and discovered to contain layers previously unnoticed. At her doorstep, they shared a second kiss, longer and more confident than the first. When Maya finally pulled away, she found the courage to ask, "Would you like to come in? For coffee or just to talk a while longer?" Ethan's smile was tender. "I'd like that very much, but not tonight. Some stories are best savored slowly." As he traced the outline of her jaw with his finger, he added, "Besides, I want you to be absolutely certain about each new page we turn together." Maya watched him walk away, her lips still tingling. For the first time in her life, she understood why people wrote poems and songs and entire novels about this feeling, this wonderful ache that was both fulfillment and yearning at once. Part 4. Chapters of Challenge. Summer brought both blooming romance and unexpected complications. As turning pages flourished under their joint vision, Maya and Ethan's relationship deepened through quiet dinners, long walks, and increasingly passionate encounters in the bookstore after hours. Each kiss, each tender touch helped Maya overcome her initial shyness, revealing a passionate nature that surprised them both. Their happiness, however, did not go unnoticed or unchallenged. "Ethan, this has gone far enough," declared Daniel Westfield, Ethan's longtime business partner, during an impromptu visit to the bookstore. Maya had stepped out to collect a rare book delivery, leaving the two men alone among the shelves. "What are you talking about?" Ethan asked, though he suspected the answer. "This dalliance," Daniel gestured dismissively at the bookstore. "The board is concerned. You've missed 3 important meetings to attend literary events. The Nakamura merger needs your attention, and instead you're playing shopkeeper with your girlfriend." Ethan's expression hardened. "Maya is not a dalliance, and this partnership has been one of our most successful community engagement initiatives." "Is that what we're calling it?" Daniel scoffed. "The company needs its CEO back. Besides, people are talking. She's... What? A bookshop girl with no experience in our world? What can she possibly offer someone like you except distraction?" "That's enough," Ethan said quietly, his voice dangerous. "Maya has shown me what matters beyond profit margins and market share. She reminds me why we started Horizon in the first place, to make a difference, not just make money." Daniel softened his approach. "Look, I'm saying this as your friend. She's lovely, but out of her depth. Eventually, you'll resent having to constantly explain your world to her, and she'll resent always feeling inadequate. It's kinder to end things now." Unbeknownst to either man, Maya had returned early, freezing in the doorway as Daniel's words reached her. She slipped back outside, heart pounding, her insecurities suddenly given voice by a stranger who nonetheless understood the disparities between her world and Ethan's. That evening, Maya was uncharacteristically distant. When Ethan tried to hold her hand across the small table in her apartment, she withdrew, busying herself with rearranging their dinner plates. "What's wrong?" Ethan finally asked. "You've barely spoken all evening." Maya looked up, her eyes troubled. "I heard what Daniel said today, about me being out of my depth, about us not belonging in each other's worlds." Ethan's expression darkened. "Daniel doesn't know what he's talking about, doesn't he?" Maya challenged softly. "Ethan, I don't know anything about board meetings or mergers. I stumble through conversations at your corporate events. Yesterday, I didn't recognize the governor when she came into the store." She stood pacing beside the window. "And now your board is concerned. Your business is suffering, all because of me." "That's not true," Ethan insisted, following her. "Daniel is projecting his own priorities onto me. Yes, I've stepped back from some aspects of work to focus on what truly matters, including you. But your company is important too," Maya argued. "It's your legacy, your creation. Thousands of people depend on it. I can't be the reason it suffers." Ethan reached for her, but Maya stepped back. "I think we need some space," she whispered, "to make sure we're not rushing into something that can't last." "Maya, please," Ethan's voice cracked. "Don't let other people's expectations dictate what we feel." "It's not just that," she admitted. "Part of me has always been waiting for you to realize that I'm not enough, that my small life with books and quiet evenings can't possibly satisfy someone who's built empires." Before Ethan could respond, his phone buzzed insistently, the special tone for urgent business matters. Maya smiled sadly. "You should get that. The real world is calling." In the difficult days that followed, the bookstore became a neutral territory, a place where they maintained professional courtesy while their personal relationship hung in painful limbo. Maya threw herself into work, hosting events and expanding their rare book collection, while Ethan traveled to Tokyo to salvage the Nakamura deal. Alone in her apartment above the bookstore, Maya would often stand at the window, watching the city lights and wondering if she had made the right choice. She missed him with an intensity that physical distance only amplified, missed his laugh, the way he absent-mindedly ran his hand through his hair when concentrating, how he always remembered exactly how she took her tea. What she didn't know was that Ethan thousands of miles away in a sleek Tokyo hotel room, was making decisions that would either bridge the gap between their worlds or widen it beyond repair. Binding hearts. The autumn rain returned to the city, echoing the day Ethan first walked into Turning Pages. Maya stood by the window, watching droplets race down the glass, each following its inevitable path, just as she had followed hers back to solitude. The bookstore was closed for the evening, her first literary salon since their separation had been exhausting, despite its success. The unexpected sound of the bell made her turn. Somehow she knew who it would be even before she saw him standing there, raindrops clinging to his coat, his expression a mixture of determination and vulnerability. "We're closed," Maya said softly, though she made no move to ask him to leave. "I know," Ethan replied, taking a cautious step forward, "but I'm hoping you'll make an exception. I've just flown back from Tokyo, and there's something I need to tell you." Maya crossed her arms, a protective gesture. "The Nakamura merger? Daniel mentioned it was successful." "It was," Ethan confirmed. "But that's not why I'm here." He moved closer, stopping when only a few feet separated them. "I've restructured Horizon Tech. Daniel is taking over as CEO." "What?" Maya's arms dropped to her sides in shock. "But you founded the company. It's your vision, your creation." Ethan smiled gently. "The company will continue carrying out that vision. But these past months made me realize something. I don't want to be remembered just as a successful businessman. When I'm gone, balance sheets and quarterly reports won't matter. What will matter are the connections I made, the lives I touched." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn book. Maya recognized it immediately, the poetry collection he had purchased on his first visit. "I've been carrying this with me everywhere," he said, opening it to reveal dog-eared pages and margin notes. "Reading it in hotel rooms and on flights, trying to find the right words to explain what I've come to understand." He took a deep breath. "Maya, our worlds aren't separate. They never were. Books and technology, tradition and innovation, they're complementary chapters of the same story. I was always a reader before I was a CEO. You were always curious about the wider world even while cherishing this sanctuary." Maya felt tears gathering. "But Daniel was right about one thing. I don't belong in boardrooms and galas." "I'm not—" "You're exactly enough," Ethan interrupted firmly. "More than enough." These months apart, they've been empty. Successful on paper, perhaps, but hollow without you. He closed the distance between them, taking her hands in his. "I've made my choice. I'm stepping back to focus on our foundation's literacy initiatives and community bookstore partnerships. And if you'll have me, to build a life with you." Maya searched his face, looking for any hint of hesitation or regret. "Are you certain? I don't want you to resent me someday for changing your path." "You didn't change my path," Ethan said softly. "You reminded me why I set out on it in the first place, to create something meaningful, to connect people. With you, I've found what I've been searching for my whole life, a love that feels like coming home." He reached up to brush away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. "Do you remember that night of our first kiss, when you told me you feared real life couldn't match the love you read about in books?" Maya nodded, her heart pounding. "I want a lifetime to prove that our story can be even better than fiction," Ethan whispered. "Because it's ours, real and imperfect and absolutely wonderful." The kiss they shared then felt like both a reunion and a new beginning, tender yet passionate, familiar yet thrilling in its promise of all that was to come. 3 months later, they held a small commitment ceremony in Turning Pages, surrounded by books and their closest friends. The bookstore had been transformed, with fairy lights woven through the shelves and white roses scattered among the reading nooks. As they exchanged vows beneath an arch made of antique books, Maya thought of all the love stories contained within the walls around them, fictional and real, ancient and contemporary. Now her own story would join them, not ending with happily ever after, but continuing to unfold, page by page in all its beautiful complexity. Later that evening, as guests celebrated around them, Ethan led Maya to a quiet corner of the store where a small, leather-bound book waited on a shelf. "What's this?" she asked, picking it up. Opening it, she found blank pages except for a handwritten inscription on the first page. For Maya and Ethan, may your story continue to be written with love, patience, and wonder. Some tales are found on shelves, but the most beautiful ones are lived day by day, heart to heart. Our next chapter, Ethan explained, his arms encircling her waist. Ready to write it together? Maya turned in his embrace, rising on tiptoes to kiss him softly. With you? Always. As they rejoined their celebration, Maya reflected on how her life had changed since that rainy day when a stranger seeking refuge had found his way into her bookstore. And her heart. The shy woman who had never been kissed now stood confidently beside the man who had shown her that love, like the best stories, reveals itself not in grand gestures, but in quiet moments of understanding, in shared silences, and in the courage to turn the page even when the next chapter seems uncertain. Their love story, unlike those on her shelves, had no final page, only the promise of chapters yet to be written together.